Jack, how many people died in the storm down here? And he says, well, I've heard about 250. I'm like, 250 people? That's all you know?
1 minute ago. People believed they knew everything about Eustace Conway, the rugged survivalist from Mountain Men, the man who built an entire life from the raw forces of nature, and the quiet figure who preferred the deep woods over crowded cities. But just recently, something was uncovered on his property that left even longtime followers stunned. A hidden structure, tucked far beyond the familiar trails of Turtle Island, has finally come to light. And what was found inside has sparked shock, concern, and endless questions. The discovery wasn't made by accident. Those close to Eustace had sensed for months that he was hiding something. An isolated corner of his land that he guarded more carefully than anything else. Even those who had worked with him for years weren't allowed near it. And when the truth was finally revealed, the reality was far more unsettling than anyone imagined. This wasn't just another cabin or simple shelter. It was something built with intention, secrecy, and a level of emotional weight that suggested a story Eustace never wanted the world to hear. What drove him to construct such a hidden place? Why did he keep it secret from the people closest to him? And what exactly was found inside that left witnesses shaken? Now, for the first time, the full story is coming out. And it reveals a side of Eustace that even his most devoted viewers never knew existed. The discovery changes everything we thought we understood about him, his past, and the burdens he's carried alone for decades. For most of his life, Eustace Conway has lived with a level of independence that few people can understand. While others rely on technology, comfort, and the noise of modern society, Eustace found peace in simplicity, building his own shelter, harvesting his own food, and surviving by instinct. But behind that calm, disciplined exterior, there was something else brewing, something he never allowed the cameras, the public, or even close friends to witness. It was this secret that led to the creation of the hidden structure recently uncovered deep inside Turtle Island. The discovery shook everyone because it contradicted everything Eustace claimed to stand for. He always said he needed nothing beyond the basics: a fire, a roof, and the land beneath his feet. Yet this structure, carefully hidden in the heavy forest, far from any marked trail, contained evidence of a man wrestling with emotions he never shared. The only reason the shelter was uncovered at all was due to an unexpected structural problem on a nearby trail. Workers were clearing overgrown branches when one of them noticed disturbed soil, an odd pattern that didn't match the natural landscape. Following the trail backward led them to a narrow, almost invisible path. It twisted through thickets of brush and around fallen logs, as if designed to discourage anyone from continuing. And at the end of that path was the hidden shelter, an isolated construction that carried an energy unlike anything else Eustace had ever built. This wasn't a survival cabin. It wasn't a workshop. It wasn't even a temporary living space. It felt personal. The first thing that stood out was how carefully it had been concealed. Eustace had covered the roof with branches, layered natural debris to mask its shape, and placed stones strategically to blend the structure into the hillside. Someone walking by would never notice it. Even the entrance was hidden behind a thick curtain of vines, almost as if nature itself had been instructed to keep this place secret. Inside, the atmosphere felt heavy, as though time itself had settled into the walls. Hand-carved wooden objects lined the edges. Old notes, sketches, and fragments of memories were scattered across a simple table. A few belongings, worn by years of handling, revealed that this place had not been built recently. It had been here for a long time. It was clear that Eustace had retreated here often, especially during periods of emotional strain. He had always appeared strong on the outside, steadfast, calm, unbreakable. But this hidden sanctuary told another story. In the dim light that slipped through gaps in the wooden planks, it became obvious that this space was tied to personal pain he never allowed anyone to see. Those who examined the structure said that it felt like stepping into the mind of someone who carried burdens silently. While nothing inside was dangerous or harmful, it was the emotional weight of the objects, the letters, the tools, the journal fragments, that unsettled observers. It wasn't the shelter itself that shocked them. It was the realization that Eustace had been quietly battling something deep and personal for years. He had not built this place to survive nature. He built it to survive himself. After spending decades on television and inspiring millions with his strength, discipline, and resilience, this hidden space revealed a side of him that felt painfully human. It hinted at loss, isolation, and a need for solitude that went far beyond his public persona. Whatever Eustace was protecting, it was powerful enough for him to hide it from the world for years. Once the hidden shelter was discovered, those close to Eustace Conway began reflecting on what it revealed about his life away from cameras and public attention. For years, viewers saw him as the fearless, unshakable survivalist, someone who could endure any challenge nature threw at him. But the shelter suggested that his real battles were not always against the wilderness. They were internal, emotional, and deeply private. The interior of the shelter offered the first clues. Every object inside seemed carefully chosen and placed, yet there was an unmistakable sense of haste in the arrangement, as though Eustace had retreated here in moments of urgent need. Blankets were folded, but showed signs of repeated use. Journals were stacked, but filled with uneven, handwritten notes. Small personal items were tucked in corners, as if they were too precious to leave behind, but too sensitive to display openly. Nothing screamed danger, but everything whispered secrecy. Friends and former colleagues who examined the shelter agreed on one point: this was more than a retreat. It was a mirror of Eustace's private mind, a place where he could confront fears, process difficult memories, and reconcile the pressures of a life lived partly in the spotlight and partly in complete isolation. Many wondered if he had ever considered allowing anyone to see this side of him. It seemed unlikely. The very act of hiding it so thoroughly suggested a man who feared exposure, even from those he trusted. The shelter also revealed Eustace's relationship with time. Several items inside were decades old, yet preserved meticulously. Old sketches of the land, tools he had made himself, and notes describing personal philosophies showed a man constantly reflecting on his journey. He wasn't just surviving in nature. He was surviving emotionally, holding on to fragments of himself that no one else would understand. Observers described a quiet reverence as they looked through the space, noting that it felt like stepping into a private sanctuary of thoughts and memories, rather than a simple living space. The discovery also raised questions about why he needed such intense secrecy. Eustace has always been fiercely independent, valuing privacy above almost all else. Yet the shelter suggested that there were aspects of his inner life he could not share with anyone. Not family, not colleagues, not even fans who admired him most. It was as if the structure itself was a boundary, a line drawn between the world. In the private storm he weathered alone. Psychologists and survival experts who later commented on the find noted that spaces like this often serve a vital purpose for people who spend years in high-stress environments. For Eustace, the wilderness is more than a backdrop for survival. It is a canvas for self-reflection, and this shelter was the most private part of that canvas. It allowed him to face difficult truths about his life, to reconcile failures, regrets, and the inevitable loneliness that comes with a life committed to the wild. Ultimately, the shelter was a testament to both Eustace's strength and his vulnerability. It revealed a man who could endure extreme conditions, build thriving structures, and survive in isolation, but also someone who carried the weight of hidden struggles that the public had never glimpsed. The discovery changed the narrative for anyone who thought they truly knew him, proving that even the strongest among us have private battles that remain unseen. The discovery of the hidden shelter also sparked questions about the emotional toll of Eustace Conway's unique lifestyle. For decades, he lived far from the comforts of modern society, dedicating himself to a life defined by self-reliance, endurance, and a deep connection to the natural world. To outsiders, this life often seemed enviable, free, simple, and unburdened by the trappings of ordinary existence. But the shelter revealed another side, the immense loneliness and isolation that accompanied his chosen path. Those who knew him well pointed out that Eustace had always been deeply introspective. Even during his television career, he rarely revealed the full scope of his thoughts, emotions, or personal struggles. Interviews and appearances focused on his expertise, his survival skills, and the lessons he could teach viewers about living off the land. The man behind the survivalist persona remained largely hidden, a layer of complexity that few could see or understand. The shelter, in many ways, was a physical manifestation of that hidden layer. Inside the secluded structure, personal artifacts told silent stories. Handwritten notes described moments of doubt, periods of intense reflection, and the emotional weight of maintaining a life so far removed from mainstream society. Some items appeared to serve as reminders, almost like markers of growth, or survival milestones. Sketches of the land, small crafted tools, and journals showed a man constantly interacting with both his environment and his inner thoughts. It was clear that Eustace wasn't simply building shelters to survive physically. He was creating a space to survive mentally and emotionally as well. Another element that stood out was the level of meticulous care. Despite the isolation, the shelter was well constructed and maintained. It suggested that even in moments of solitude or despair, Eustace retained a sense of purpose. Every plank, every corner, every object had meaning, reflecting a mind that needed order and focus to manage the complexities of his life. Observers said that being inside the shelter felt like entering a personal sanctuary where the pressures of the outside, a world simply couldn't reach. This level of privacy also demonstrated Eustace's reluctance to show vulnerability. While he openly shared his knowledge and survival techniques with the world, he rarely allowed people to see his emotional side. The shelter revealed that he carried deep internal struggles, challenges that were unseen, unspoken, and often unacknowledged. The act of hiding it so effectively underscored his desire to protect this part of himself, even from those closest to him. Experts who later analyzed the situation emphasized how common it is for highly independent individuals to develop private sanctuaries. These spaces often function as emotional buffers, allowing a person to process feelings, work through trauma, and find a sense of stability in a world that may feel overwhelming. For Eustace, whose life has always revolved around extreme conditions and intense self-discipline, the shelter became a vital coping mechanism, a quiet refuge where he could confront fears and insecurities without judgment. The revelation of this space reshaped the public's perception of him. It reminded everyone that no matter how strong or self-sufficient someone appears, everyone carries hidden struggles. In Eustace Conway's case, those struggles were amplified by his isolation, his dedication to a demanding lifestyle, and the pressures of being a public figure admired for his toughness. The shelter made it undeniable. The man who taught millions to survive the wilderness also needed a private place to survive himself. The uncovering of Eustace Conway's hidden shelter has left a lasting impression on everyone who has learned about it. Beyond the initial shock, what makes the discovery so compelling is the insight it provides into the complex life of a man who has spent decades mastering the wilderness while keeping a deeply private inner world. It is one thing to watch him on television, navigating mountains, rivers, and forests with skill and courage. It is another entirely to step into a space that he created for himself, a place where the outer strength he shows the world meets the inner vulnerability he rarely shares. Observers who have entered the shelter describe an almost reverential feeling, as if the walls themselves hold the weight of years of reflection, struggle, and quiet resilience. Every object seems to tell a story. Old journals lined with careful handwriting hint at moments of doubt, periods of intense introspection, and the challenges of maintaining balance in a life spent mostly alone. Simple handcrafted tools reveal the continuity of skill and dedication, showing that even in private moments, Eustace maintained the discipline that defines his public persona. There is a palpable sense that this space was not merely for survival, but for processing and understanding the life he has led. The emotional significance of the shelter cannot be overstated. Eustace has always been viewed as the embodiment of toughness, the quintessential survivalist who thrives where most would falter. But the hidden space demonstrates that even the strongest individuals need sanctuaries. It is here, away from cameras, fans, and colleagues, that Eustace could confront feelings he could not express elsewhere: fear, loneliness, and the weight of personal history. The shelter allowed him to engage with his vulnerabilities in a controlled environment, giving him the privacy to process emotions that might otherwise overwhelm him. Experts who study human behavior and isolation suggest that creating such private spaces is often crucial for individuals who lead intense or unconventional lives. For someone like Eustace, whose days involve constant physical exertion and exposure to unpredictable elements, a hidden retreat provides a rare opportunity for mental and emotional restoration. It is a place to decompress, reflect, and regain clarity before returning to the demands of his daily life. In many ways, the shelter is as important to his well-being as the skills he demonstrates on the screen. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the discovery is what it reveals about Eustace's character. Despite his fame and the public fascination with his persona, he has consistently prioritized authenticity over image. The shelter was never built for show. It was built for necessity. Its concealment was deliberate, emphasizing the value he places on privacy and the need to safeguard certain aspects of his life from scrutiny. It tells the story of a man who, while capable of surviving in the harshest environments, also understands the importance of protecting his inner world. The revelation of the hidden shelter has reshaped the public's understanding of Eustace Conway. It is a reminder that even those who appear invulnerable carry unseen burdens. His survivalist skills, physical endurance, and calm demeanor are now seen alongside a profound emotional resilience. A resilience that includes the courage to face his own vulnerabilities in solitude. The shelter stands as a testament to his ingenuity, determination, and humanity, offering a rare glimpse into the private life of a man who has inspired millions while quietly navigating his own complex journey. Ultimately, the discovery is not just about secrecy or shock, it is about understanding. It teaches us that strength is multifaceted, and that survival is as much about preserving the mind and spirit as it is about enduring the wilderness. Eustace Conway's hidden sanctuary reminds the world that even the toughest individuals require spaces to process, heal, and simply be themselves away from the gaze of others. It is a revelation that deepens admiration, evokes empathy, and highlights the profound human side of a man who has long been celebrated for his ability to thrive in the wild.